Aloha!
Oh, hi. I bet you're wondering what's going on right now. As you can see, we are currently in the great state of Hawaii, a place rich with culture, history, and pineapples. Today we'll be discussing Hawaiian statehood, why it first failed, and then why it succeeded in the 86th Congress.
This is commonly known as the Hawaiian Admission Act, which was enacted into law on March 18, 1959. This dissolved the territory of Hawaii and established it as the 50th state in the Union, the cherry on top of forming a cohesive nation, or should we say, pineapple on top.
Unfortunately, the path to Hawaiian statehood was as rocky as the slopes of Mauna Kea. Initially, Hawaii became a U.S. territory in 1898 and remained under U.S. control without congressional representation until the discussion of its becoming a state in the 1950s.
Shortly after the annexation of Hawaii as a territory, Hawaiian citizens began a push for statehood. They wanted the same rights as U.S. citizens, including representation in Congress and the ability to elect their local officials.
Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. Just grilling up some tuna. Despite the U.S.'s reluctance to accept Hawaiian statehood following the war, Hawaii's territorial delegate Joe Farrington, elected in 1942, revived the battle for statehood after the war. The citizens of Hawaii now felt as though they had proved their loyalty and deserved equal treatment under the law and all the rights that come with being a U.S. citizen.
That's right, Michael. Pushes for Hawaiian statehood began in the House in 1947, with the House proposing H.R. 49. The bill passed in the House 200 to 137, but failed in the Senate without ever reaching a vote. Unfortunately, future bills attempting Hawaiian statehood met similar fates of failure in the following decade.
The push for Hawaiian statehood met strong resistance from the strongly conservative white Southern Democrats who ran Congress. During the 1952 election cycle, the Republicans rode Dwight Eisenhower's coattails and succeeded in winning narrow majorities in both the House and the Senate. But the statehood bill failed to pass during the period of GOP control of 1953 through 1954 due to intense Southern Democratic resistance.
Oh, hi. During the period in the early 1950s when the Republicans were slowly rising to power in Congress, attempts at statehood were unsuccessful. H.R. 49 in 1950 passed the House with a 290 to 129 vote, and H.R. 233 in 1955 passed in the House with a 323 to 67 vote, but both died in the Senate. H.R. 3575 in 1953 failed in the House with a vote of 190 to 236, and SB 49 in 1954 failed in the Senate 28 to 63.
Again, part of what prevented legislation addressing statehood from passing in the 1950s was the makeup of the U.S. Senate, which was controlled by strong Southern Democrats who were pretty unbudging in admitting the multiracial territory. They feared that Hawaii's admission would bring 2 Senate seats that would vote for civil rights agenda, and that these new seats could ruin the Southern filibuster against such legislation.
Eventually, in 1956, a former officer of the Honolulu Police Department, John A. Burns, was elected to Congress as a delegate of the island nation. Burns' election turned out to be pivotal to the statehood movement.
Upon arriving in Washington, D.C., Burns began making allies among congressional leaders and state governors. Burns' most important accomplishment was convincing Senate Majority Leader Lyndon B. Johnson that Hawaii was ready to become a state.
Burns' version of the bill gained traction because he separated the issue of Alaskan statehood from Hawaii. He proposed that the passage of Hawaiian statehood would be delayed until after Alaska was voted on. This idea was strongly supported by the Senate Majority Leader Johnson, who had a DW nominate score of -.242, and the Speaker of the House, Sam Rayburn, who had a DW nominate score of -.3095.
Despite some reluctance from President Eisenhower, who had a DW nominate score of 0.281, who was looking to establish military bases in Hawaii, Congress ultimately decided to first grant statehood to Alaska, a then democratic-leaning territory, early in 1959, with the intention of soon after giving Hawaii statehood.
With the new democratic state of Alaska, Congress was now able to grant the then Republican-leaning Hawaii statehood to restore political balance. In March 1959, nearly identical bills to admit Hawaii were reported by the House Interior and Insular Affairs Committee as H.R. 4221 and by its Senate counterpart as SB 50.
A motion by Senate Dixiecrat Strom Thurmond, who had a DW nominate score of .282 to recommit the bill with instructions to report back to Commonwealth measure, was rejected by voice vote. The Senate would then pass SB 50 by an 84 to 15 vote. The next day, the House acted, first rejecting a motion to recommit, then passing the bill by a 331 to 94 vote. A week later, President Eisenhower signed SB 50 into law.
That June, the citizens of Hawaii voted on a referendum to accept the statehood bill. The referendum passed with a vote of 93% for state admittance. Shown on the screen is a graph showing the DW nominate scores of each senator who voted on the statehood bill. The scores are shown on a graph that shows the relationship between social and racial issues versus economic views. The only senators who voted nay were the most socially conservative voters regarding racial issues in the Senate, who happened to be the Southern Democrats.